Why do we get old? I mean, really, it's a question humans have been asking forever. It feels so inevitable, kind of mysterious, and for every single one of us, it's deeply personal. But what if aging isn't just this random process of our bodies falling apart? What if it actually follows a blueprint, a map that we could read? Well, today we're going to dive into the incredible science that's drawing that map right now.
Okay, so first things first, let's get on the same page. When scientists talk about aging, what do they actually mean? Well, the landmark 2013 paper, The Hallmarks of Aging, defines it as a progressive loss of physiological integrity. Now, in plain English, that just means our body systems slowly, gradually lose their ability to work right. And this, in turn, makes us more vulnerable to disease and, well, eventually death. And here's the kicker. That slow decline, it's the single biggest risk factor for almost every major chronic disease we face today.
You know, for most of human history, trying to figure out why we age was like trying to solve a puzzle with almost all of the pieces missing. There are countless theories, right? But no single unifying idea. It was a total black box. Scientists could see the effects, sure, the gray hair, the fact that we heal slower, but the root causes down at the cellular level, that remained a complete and profound mystery.
But in the last few decades, that black box has been completely pried open. Research into aging has absolutely exploded. We've gone from basically wandering around in the dark to holding a detailed map. It's this incredible conceptual framework that explains, for the first time ever, what's really going on inside ourselves as the years tick by.
And this is it. This is the map. Now, this was inspired by a similar, totally game-changing framework for understanding cancer. Researchers identified these 9 distinct hallmarks of aging. Think of them as the 9 core pillars that hold up the entire process. And the really brilliant thing about this map is it's not just a list, it tells a story in 3 parts. The initial causes of damage, the body's super complicated response to that damage, and then finally, the ultimate consequences.
So, let's start where any good story starts, at the beginning. Part 1 is all about the primary hallmarks. These are the root causes, the initial sparks that really set the whole fire of aging. This is where all the damage starts.
These first 4 are all about damage at the most basic level imaginable. So, think of genomic instability as typos and glitches just piling up in our DNA, our body's master instruction manual. Telomere attrition. Okay, you know the little plastic tips on your shoelaces. That's what telomeres are for our chromosomes, and they get shorter and wear away with every single cell division. Then you've got epigenetic alterations. These are changes to how our genes are read, kind of like someone scribbling notes in the margins of the instruction book that tell a cell to start acting old. And finally, loss of proteostasis. That's when our cell's quality control system for proteins just fails, leaving the whole cellular workforce in total disarray.
This really illustrates 2 of those points perfectly. Over on the left, you see the constant attack our DNA is under, from UV rays outside to just simple mistakes when it copies itself inside. And on the right, you see that unbelievably complex machinery that keeps our proteins folded and working properly. When these systems start to fail, junk proteins build up, and it just creates total cellular chaos. So the big takeaway here is this. These primary hallmarks are all about direct accumulating damage to our core cellular hardware and software.
All right, now for Act 2. And this is where the plot really thickens. See, when faced with all this damage, our body doesn't just sit there and take it. It fights back. It has these sophisticated defense mechanisms. But, and here's the huge twist, the very systems designed to protect us can, over time, actually start to speed up our decline. These are the antagonistic hallmarks, and they are all responses to that initial damage we just talked about. For instance, our cells have these pathways that sense nutrients to control growth. Our mitochondria, the power plants of our cells, can change how they work when they're under stress. And cellular senescence, that's a critical program that basically forces damaged cells into permanent retirement to stop them from becoming cancerous. Each one of these is, at first, a very, very good thing. I just love this metaphor for them. They are the body's double-edged swords. In the short term, they're incredibly helpful, right? They help us survive things like famine or they prevent cancer. But when these responses stay switched on for decades, when they become chronic, they start to drive the aging process themselves. Cellular senescence is the absolute perfect example. I mean, look at this. Its main job is heroic. It stops the damaged cell from turning into a tumor. Fantastic. But as we get older, we start to accumulate these senescent cells. They don't die. They just hang around like these grumpy squatters, spewing out inflammatory signals that damage all the healthy tissue around them. They literally become zombie cells. And the more of them we have, the faster we seem to age. A protector becomes a major problem.
And that brings us to the final act of our story, the integrative hallmarks. These are the ultimate, system-wide results of decades of that initial damage, combined with those flawed long-term responses. This is where all that cellular chaos finally translates into the functional decline that we actually call getting old.
And here they are, our final two culprits: stem cell exhaustion and altered intercellular communication. What this means, basically, is that after years and years of wear and tear, our body's precious reserves of regenerative stem cells just start to run dry. And at the exact same time, the communication lines between our cells, our tissues, and our organs, they start to crackle with static and just plain bad information.
And this isn't some abstract concept either. This is where the science gets incredibly real. As you can see here, when the stem cells that make our blood get exhausted, we can get anemia. When the ones that build bone decline, we get osteoporosis. You know that feeling of recovering from a workout way slower than you used to? Yeah, that's directly linked to the exhaustion of your muscle stem cells. This is the hallmark that connects the microscopic world inside our bodies to the real-world experiences of aging.
And that other final culprit, the breakdown in communication, one of its most damaging effects is this low-grade chronic inflammation that just spreads throughout the entire body. And scientists have a perfect name for it: inflammaging. It's like this smoldering fire that never quite goes out, and it contributes to nearly every single major disease of age.
So, there we have it. The causes, the responses, and the consequences. But what's the point of having a map, right? Well, the point of a map is to find a new, better way to get where you're going. And this framework isn't just some fascinating explanation for your biology textbook, it's a practical roadmap for developing real interventions.
The authors themselves really said it best. The ultimate goal here isn't necessarily about living forever. It's about improving our health span, the number of years we get to live in vibrant, robust health. And by understanding how all 9 of these hallmarks are connected, we can finally start to identify real targets for new therapies.
And this is what the future of medicine could actually look like. Every single one of the 9 hallmarks we just walked through is a potential point we can attack. We can develop drugs to clear out those zombie cells, therapies to protect our telomeres, or even diets to improve our nutrient-sensing pathways. This map does something absolutely revolutionary. It turns the single, overwhelming, unsolvable problem of aging into 9 smaller and potentially solvable problems.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating final thought. For pretty much all of human history, aging has been accepted as an absolute, unchangeable fact of life. But now, with this map in hand, science is starting to ask a radical new question. Could aging, or at least its worst effects, one day become a treatable condition?